Okay.
It says, oh, it says we're live. Okay, we're live. So we'll just wait for people to sign on, but they can see us if they're watching. So let me look here.
So I could watch if I pull up your Facebook.
Wait for people to sign on. Yeah, if you pull up your phone, just turn it down, and you can see comments. Hey, Jana. So I'm going to say hi to people as they sign on. Okay. It's kind of bizarre, just like you can see people signing on, but you just have to trust they're there and watching. Please say hi as you're signing on, because it doesn't always tell me if you're watching. I can see the eyeballs. I can see there are several people watching, but it doesn't tell me if you're on. So say hi. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Clark.
I got it. I can see people.
You can see now. Yeah, so you'll be able to look at the comments. What do you guys think about this 2:30 time? It's kind of a different time for us. We're going to move things around in the fall anyway, so this is a good little test. So while people are signing on, I'll just start to introduce our guest, because I want to make sure that, hi Joyce, hi Tori, that she has plenty of time to share from her fount of wisdom that she has to offer us. And this is Dr. Isabel Docampo. And I'm so excited to be on today with you, because we met through the Nevertheless She Preached conference, and we met a couple of years ago at an advisory team meeting, and we were the last, like we were both the last to arrive, so that's why we sat by each other. And hi, Aspen, and Janice says you have gorgeous hair, all caps.
She's talking to you, I'm sure.
No, she said Isabel has gorgeous hair. But anyway, so we met, and it was such a gift to me that happened. I still to this day, in that, even that night, I said it was a spirit moment that we were seated next to each other, and just, you've been such a gift to me as a mentor, and just as a wise woman, a trailblazer, and somebody to learn from. And so I just love being in your proximity. And I'm so excited for everybody to listen to your talk today. And I mean, it's all very informal, but one thing that I did want you to highlight as you introduce yourself to us is just the fact that you were ordained as a Baptist woman in 1985, which year I was born.
It was the year my son was born too, actually.
It's just incredible, because even for me, I was ordained like, I don't know, 7 years ago. And even back then, it felt like few and far between in Baptist life to have Baptist women pastors. And now 7 years later, it's like, it's amazing. There's so much. But in the 80s, I can't even imagine what it was like to navigate, that kind of a context, and especially with the intersections, being a woman, being a Latina, having immigrant parents, and all the different ways, and, navigating different cultures. So I want to hear from you. I'm going to mute myself. I'll be listening, but I want to hear from you today. And then also, if you're watching, please share if you have any questions.
Yeah.
Then she can answer those when she gets time. So thank you again for.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I feel very honored, and I feel very grateful for all of you taking the time to have coffee with me, although I forgot my coffee in the other room. So, but I hope y'all didn't forget yours, and I hope y'all are having a nice cup of coffee. I was telling Aurelia that the question was great about what it's like to be in the 80s. I don't stop to think about it too much, but it was wonderful to do that. And I realized that, it really starts with the awakening of the fact that when I was a senior in high school, in the 70s, Gloria Steinem was all over the place, and I'm having fun with the Mrs. America kind of, that's helping me remember some of that stuff. But I wanted to say that I remember Ms. Magazine. I remember that whole awakening. I went to an all-girl public high school because Louisiana was so afraid of having blacks and whites together that they segregated the high school. And but that was so empowering for me because it developed all our leadership skills. But and then Roe versus Wade happened the year I graduated from high school. So all that was happening. So when I went to college, I went to Louisiana Baptist College, and the big hot topic was ordination of women. And that continued, of course, and I went to seminary, and made me think about how even at seminary, even though a few years before I arrived in '79, there was already a very powerful and strong women in theology group, but it was still a minority group, who were in the MDiv program. And my interview, I will never forget my interview for the seminary was like, he wanted me to choose Master of Religious Education. And I kept saying, nope, I want to do a Master of Divinity. And I had to kind of just stay really with it, to kind of get in that degree program. And I remember finally saying, is there a reason that I cannot do this degree? And he said, no, of course, I just want to make sure you're in the right degree. Oh, I guess. And even that was a hurdle, I guess. It's just, looking back, just to get into the MDiv, you had to go through this gatekeeper. But, and of course, I was the only Latina in my entire seminary. My best friend became a Cherokee Creek woman from Oklahoma, and she thought I was Indian, and I thought she was Latina, and we met in the halls and embraced. We didn't even know each other, but we embraced each other. It was such a thirst to have someone to look like me, in there. And we literally embraced without knowing each other. And then we introduced each other. It was just so spontaneous. So that gives you a little bit of what that was like in seminary. But I have to say that I was ordained by a white, wonderful church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in 1985, where I was serving as a home missionary for the Southern Baptist Convention, doing Christian social ministries, which was something I would have done my entire life. I was working with the poor, working with refugees, working with domestic violence. I was just doing very meaningful work for me. That did come to an end as the Southern Baptist took a big right turn, but I was embraced by that. And my home church was just phenomenally supportive. My home church was a little Latino church. They ordained my mom as a deacon earlier, and then and they were very supportive of me. And so it wasn't until later that after I graduated and had to leave Baton Rouge and went to DC, and I was trying to go to some Latino churches that I was confronted with Latino patriarchal systems that just would not let me in, and it was really very shocking to me because I guess I should have known better, but since my experience with my church was not that way, I kind of expected that they would, welcome me. I was a seminary trained, ordained woman, ready. They had very little leadership, but that was not the case. And so but I was very fully embraced in white spaces, to people who embraced me, and I am forever grateful for all of those ways that I've been able to serve in churches who were predominantly white, who completely embraced me and helped me. And that was all very good, but it was hard, and I was very excited to be invited to be served along with Nancy Sehested and Libby Bellinger and Susan Lockwood Wright and others on the Southern Baptist Women in Ministry in 1987. They were women I looked up to and learned a lot from, and still look up to them, and still feel like they're amazing women, and they opened doors for me and helped me. But I didn't have words. I mean, the thing that this topic comes to mind is that as a Latina, I didn't have many other Latinas that I knew of that were ordained and were in the space of full gospel, what we call full gospel ministry, full Christian, not cubbyholed into other areas. And I just didn't know anyone like me. Maybe they were there, but I didn't find them anywhere. Most of them were kind of like in a more traditional roles, and I didn't feel called in that way. And so while I was very, very welcomed, and I thank God for all of that, I also know that I wasn't totally myself. You know, there was just this part of me that was being left behind that I couldn't articulate. And I didn't have the words. I just didn't have the words to articulate what I was missing, to be very honest with all of you. And so I kind of navigated the world the best I can. I got glimpses of that. I was serving on the Baptist Peace Fellowship Board, and they invited me to be the representative of the board to the first ordination of the woman in Nicaragua in the 1993, I believe it was. It was in the early 90s. And that was a phenomenal experience, an awakening experience, because I met other women there who were Latina and embracing the pastoral ministry. And that was a very, I didn't sleep that whole week talking to all these women. And then when I went to Cuba, for the first time, I was 41, which is where I'm from. My family's from there. I went with the Alliance of Baptists. And that was a life-changing experience for me, because I finally started to begin to get words. When I was there, I had this experience of feeling finally fully whole and known. Like there was like this big chunk of me that I didn't know how to embrace, which was my Cubanness in the public space and as a minister, and I could do it in that place. But also it was very clear to me that I was also very American, that I was from America. But it just gave me that missing piece. So when I came back, is when I really started to really embrace who I was totally, and not leaving that behind, and really, peppering, even talking to my Spanish friend, my English friends, peppering and bringing more of who I was, not keeping it hidden, bring it more to the front. Not that anyone asked me to, it was just that I didn't know how to do it. And it was always very appreciated in a way that was full of integrity. Everyone knew that I was Latina, and there were times when I felt like I was the token person at the table, but then I had to navigate all of that. But that experience in Cuba just helped me embrace the fact that I'm both and start figuring out what that meant. What did that mean? How do I navigate that? It's like, I just didn't know how to bring it into ministry. I didn't know how to do it, except that it was a great thing that I could speak Spanish and I could bridge and stuff like that. But I never really brought it into my identity. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I feel like I was always acquiescing. Oh, you do it this way. Okay, we'll do it that way. And I really wanted to embrace all of my gifts, everything that I bring, and that Latin flavor and that, I didn't want to keep that under wraps. I wanted to bring it out more in front and to name it. And I think that began my journey. And then, of course, writing started to happen. I remember in the 1990s, I read Ada Maria Sacidia's just a basic book, Hispanic Ministry and Witness. And that was like, oh my God, that is just me. And then of course, later, all the feminist Latina theologies and Mujerista. And that was all very helpful to me to really find the words for how I did my faith, how I lived my life, from that perspective, and to really completely embrace it and bring it into the world. And to see that as a gift. It's kind of lonely sometimes when you're only living in a certain space. It's just, you're always fighting whether, you're always kind of, as a woman in her age who came into her own early on, one of the things that we all struggled with was this imposter syndrome, in the early years. You're always, all these messages were like, no, you're not good enough. And then they have servant leadership language was also not helpful to those of us in those early years, because it all further helped to silence us. So add to that the whole layer of being Latina and having a completely different perspective and not having a community to go to with that. That would just added to a part of me being, kind of not out there, not knowing how to articulate that. So when when I was able to read and see in those writings my experience, I was able to then be more self-confident about it and unapologetic and see the gifts. And that's what I want to talk about. I think that what I see is the gift of being Latina and American is that I see things from two angles, and I can nuance things better. I could be a bridge, but this space is a space of its own, with its own identity. And I think one of the first persons that helped me was when I read Gloria Anzaldúa, which is a completely different. She's Mexican American. I'm not Mexican American, but where it helped me was to understand that you're not one or the other, you're both and that just opened up for me to explore that even and more fully, and to claim and to name and not let other people name me. And that's something that I think I did for too long, allowing people to name me as one, and or you put me in this, I kind of very passively allowed that. And now I realize, no, I can't do that, that I need to name myself, and that it's okay. And this is the other thing that I think about living in liminal spaces, is that it's okay to be fluid. I used to always feel like, well, I'm kind of like that, but I'm more than that. And so I used to say, well, maybe who am I, right? Because that speaks to me, but that doesn't speak to me. And I'm this and I'm that, and so that's the gift of being able to be fluid, and that's the gift of being open. Because I think when you're living these liminal spaces and you can see things, you're more open, and you could see the beauty and the gift of being more open and receiving people into the table, and being able to listen to more stories and see different perspectives and see the richness of that. Because in a way, I feel like, well, I know I have something to bring to the table and I need to be heard. So, and it's good. And so I think living in that liminal space just kind of takes away this fear of having to put up a wall, but it kind of like brings it down a little bit, and helps you listen differently, and helps you say, well, this person or this perspective, it probably has something to teach me. Let me go there. Let me go there. And I find that's a real gift to the church and to the world. And the fluidity of it, the ever changing of it, that it's not, I don't need to apologize for that. I'm not being wishy-washy. I'm not being, not knowing where I stand. I am being open, and I am being leaning into learning more. And that does take you to kind of frightening spaces and places where you have to stop and think theologically very clearly and very thoughtfully about, okay, what does this mean? But I'd rather do that than to be in a box or stuck or somewhere. It takes a little bit of courage to do that. And I have to say that part of my journey and my ability to embrace that and to move into that, I owe to the women that have come behind me. There was a group of women, I don't know if she's on the call, but Lara Cadena, who is a graduate of Truett, formed this group of Latina women, Baptist women, and she asked me to be a part of this little support group. And that was the greatest gift for me in my early 50s, to sit with these phenomenally younger women who were, we were talking about all this stuff. It was just so wonderful. And we were supporting one another. Beaker Hernandez, Annalise Schremer, Maria, Laura, they were just amazing women to help me. And then when I met Aurelia and we started talking about this, and then this whole Nevertheless You Preach people who are coming, I'm like, this y'all are just giving me hope and courage and helping me grow. And that's one thing that when I started this, when I finally were able to, when I came into the role of at the seminary, one of the prayers that I had when I came into this role was, I had so many people say no to me when I was younger, and I had to fight for every door that I had to get into. And my prayer was, God, you gave me this opportunity to serve in the seminary and field education. Help me be a person who opened doors. Because I don't subscribe to the kind of leadership that you have to, I suffered and I took my stripes, so therefore you have to say, I don't believe in that. I believe in open doors, lifting people up, because I'm so grateful for the people who do that for me. And I want to continue to do that for the people that come after me. And so, and then to have the gift of younger women still opening doors for me. I just think that's kind of wonderful. I'm trying to open doors from where I sit and where I can. And then just to be gifted with younger women who are also opening doors for me so that I could totally embrace the fact that I am an American Latina from Cuba. I'm a Cuban American feminist, clergy person. And that means a lot of different things. And anyway, I'll stop there and let people ask me questions if they have any.
So much. I know if you have any questions, ask them now in our last few minutes. But I love everything you said so much. I love your story. And I love what you just said about like wanting to be an open door. I feel that. And I feel like as a young woman who you experience so much, in your early career as a woman, as a person of color, like there's already so much that is so hard. So to feel that open door from a woman ahead of you is just such a gift. And I'm so grateful for that. So thank you personally. Jana says, we all have a door we can open for someone else.
Yes.
Let's see. I thought I had a question and it went out of my head. But
that's all right.
If someone has a question, we'll give you just a minute to ask. Because there's a lag, going from Zoom to Facebook. It takes.
That's all right.
Yeah.
One of the other questions you asked me in preparation for this is, what would I say to younger generations? And I would just say, please, this is what I would say to the younger generation of Latina women or any woman coming behind, is to well, first I want to affirm the courage, because I know that if you're claiming that call, that's a courageous call. I mean, I just got off my internship seminar, the first one for the year, and we share, the students share their call stories, and they're amazing call stories. And it's always to say yes to God and follow that call, that's already courageous. And so I would say, stay in that courage, stay in that faith. Don't let anyone ever negate that for you, and hold fast to that. I would say embrace your biculturality if you're bicultural, and more than that. I feel like it's more than just as women, we navigate so many different spaces. So we navigate maybe two spaces of two cultures, sometimes three cultures, depending on our background, of our family background. And then we have to navigate the dominant white woman culture and the women of color culture, and then we have to dominate with the white women the whole male culture in work. So there's a lot of different ways that you're navigating, and I would just say that embrace all of that, and not be ashamed of navigating and being fluid and through all of those, and don't think less of yourself when you're seeing yourself feeling like, oh, okay, I'm being fluid here, and I'm navigating these things. Just embrace that, learn, get allies, and go out. And I want to say to the younger women, one of the things that y'all have done for me is that y'all are so courageous and clear about being able to name what doesn't feel right, and just to name it. And I know my generation, we used to kind of name it, but then kind of not name all of it. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to judiciously name what I think I can conquer and go for, and I'll just choose the one. I love that y'all just name it all and say, we're not putting up with it. This is just doggone wrong. I love that. That's hope for me. And I think y'all are so full of what God wants for all of humanity, wants an abundant life for all of us, and y'all embrace those gifts. And I see you as the revolution that Jesus was talking about. I see that in you, that y'all are just embracing that. And my only prayer is that maybe those of us who came before were able to maybe make some ground for you. But now I think y'all are ready to take us where we need to the finish line. Y'all are taking us there. And I would just say, believe in yourself, believe in God, follow that, and don't second guess. And find your allies.
Thank you so much. Such good encouragement, wisdom. Just lucky to be in proximity. And of course, we're kind of honing in on that feminine voice because A, that's been your experience, and B, we're kind of elevating the Nevertheless She Preached conference coming up, which you can register for. It's not a conference for women. It's a conference for everyone that elevates the feminine voice. And so we would love for you to sign up for that. It's a really, really cool event this year, all online. So we hope you'll sign up. If you see in the comments, there's some encouragement here to you. And Tori says, thank you for all you have preached. I'm preaching from the margins as a queer woman. This particular message hits me hard today. You sharing your experience brings me hope and encouragement. So
well, blessings to you, Tori.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. It's probably a good place to end. And I'm going to say goodbye to our Facebook friends first, and then we'll say goodbye on Zoom. But thanks everyone for watching. Feel free to share this video. We'll upload it to our YouTube channel later, and we can share it with anybody. So thanks again.
Thank you all.